First and Now, your official BC Lions podcast for the first time in the year 2024. What a great year it could shape up to be. Matt Baker alongside Nick Kowalski. Back at it. It feels good, man. What's going on?
Feels good, but we're in the dog days of winter right now. What's going on here?
Well, we're like the only ones in this office, right?
Yeah, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, let's get a party
It is
going.
Friday. It is Friday.
It is Friday. I don't even know. Well, I came in here to do this podcast. I was about to say, like, we've had a couple days of quote-unquote snowmageddon in the city, and recording this on a Friday morning. Decided to leave the car, but SkyTrain, a bit of a slushy walk. Be careful out there, everyone. The rain's coming. It's going to turn to slush. I saw at least a couple of atmospheric rivers around our practice facility.
I got a bunch of booters. We ran into each other on the way in. And
yeah,
I got a bunch of booters on the way here. I was not expecting that because you see the snow on the ground, but then you step on it.
Well,
and
you're wearing freaking tennis shoes, bud. Come on, you got to get Yeah,
it's not that cold.
Well, it's not that cold, but you want your feet to be dry on a day like
shovel the sidewalks.
This is the West Coast version of it, man. Once the rain comes, all hell breaks
Snow
loose,
that when you step in it is actually water.
Yeah. I don't care. Yeah, I was sweating when I got inside here.
Same, and my feet are still wet.
Yeah.
We've been here for an hour.
Moral of the story, be careful out there. And it's funny, we had kind of a first round of this last week. I was still off. Yeah. And it was one of those where it started. I was supposed to go out to Richmond, so driving down one of those hills in Burnaby, we get halfway down, and my wife says, "We're not doing this. Turn this car around. We're supposed to go out to Richmond to get our daughter from my parents' place." So it ended up being one of those sleepover nights for her, which was great for us and her because she has a lot more fun with her grandparents than she does her parents. It's funny how that works, eh? I think we can all relate to that from being youngsters, but yeah, and then in the time it took for us to get back home, 10, 15 minutes, I think we saw 3 fender benders on this same hill we turned around. So
yeah, that comes with it.
It's scary.
Too.
It's scary.
But it could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot worse.
This is going on everywhere. Look at the rest of Canada.
Well,
minus 50 in Alberta.
35 below in Edmonton or whatever it was last week. So.
Yeah, it's like minus 50 with the wind. So it could be worse. And for my last comment is that I'm happy and thankful I live in the mainland. Because it is, for Canadian winter, it is as good as it gets.
Could be living in Winnipeg. Could be worse, right? Anyway. We got...
Okay, Moj.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go that far, but yeah, so a lot has happened since our last recording. I think our last one was right before Christmas. We're talking about Ryan Phillips. We're talking with Ryan Phillips, coaching staff being back. Go back and listen to that
schedule.
One. Yeah, schedule. RP was fantastic. Wherever you get your podcasts here, your favorite platform. We're on YouTube. We're all over the YouTube platform, Nick. So... yeah, great interviews with Phillips, and we're going to be bringing you these podcasts at least once every couple of weeks between now and free agency, February the 13th. But we have a lot to discuss today. Assistant GM Ryan Rigmaiden, he's a busy guy these days. We'll talk with him in a few minutes, but we want to get his thoughts on some of the key pieces sticking around. Again, all of this in the last 2-3 weeks. Might as well go in chronological order here. BC Lions trying to put the best team on the field as per usual. I know a lot of the talking heads out there, they'll talk about urgency, Grey Cups in Vancouver. You're wearing your Grey Cup Festival shirt, Nick, for those watching this podcast. Every year is a Grey Cup year. The goal is to get there every year. Yeah, is it going to be special to possibly playing at home? Absolutely. But the urgency leading up to that process doesn't change. And the first signing of 2024, 2-year extension for the kickoff return yards leader, Terry Williams. Big special teams can come up big in big games, and Scary Terry's back.
Yeah, and he's someone who, in crunch time, he's delivered, right? You think about that Ottawa game where he had that 120-yard missed field goal return to give us a chance to come back and win that game. You go back to 2 seasons ago in the playoffs when you had that missed PAT return.
Winnipeg,
Winnipeg. So he's delivered in some pretty clutch moments. Great person in the room, too. Great individual. Someone that always has a smile on his face. Fits in really well in that receiver room because he also is a receiver. We've seen him catch a couple balls last season. So happy to have Terry back.
When you think edge rushers with this team last year, Nick, you think Matthew Betts, David Menard, of course, the Canadian duo, but Sione Tuhema, one of these guys that came to Kamloops a couple of years ago, was just a name on a depth chart, made the team, and he's contributed greatly. 7 quarterback sacks, I think that was second overall on the team, second or third, 37 defensive tackles, couple of big fumble recoveries, that crazy game against Winnipeg here, October 6th, the Gravy Bowl, 15 quarterback sacks in 2 seasons. This is a guy that plays with a high motor, and this was an important guy to get done. Might not be the guy that jumps off the page in the stat sheet, but he makes a lot of plays.
Yeah, that's because he is a very underrated player at this point. You just said 15 sacks in 2 seasons. He also makes some big plays in the run game too. Someone who was also pretty big in the locker room too. If you've been watching Arrow Up, he's the one that actually started the Foursquare game that literally these guys played every single day.
Huge.
So he brings all that too to the team, and a valuable piece. He's a younger piece too, so I know they're excited about him from years to come. And again, happy to have Sione back.
Heck of an individual. One of those guys, he seems quiet off the field, but definitely has a personality. He's a fierce guy once he straps on those pads.
He has a switch.
Yeah, he does. He definitely does. We'll talk about all the receivers at the end here, but back to special teams. Field position, a big part of it too. Stefan Flintoft. Remember, this was a guy who came in 2021. The Lions had tried to go the global route with Jake Ford out of Australia. And Stefan Flintoft ended up just kind of beating him out in week 3 or 4, I think it was, in that season. He was 5th in the CFL, so middle of the pack as far as yards and punts and net and all that, but he's been much higher than that in previous years. It's good to have Flint in the fold. Another one of those funny guys off the field that is a big part of this FTC empire that is being built here, right?
100%, yeah. And one thing about Flint too, you talk about the how he ranks in the middle of the pack for kickoffs and punts. That's one thing that he handles both duties, so that's valuable to have one guy that can handle both those duties. But another duty that he handles, and Sean White will attest to this, that he is the best. Sean White says that Stefan Flintoff is the best holder he's ever had in his career. So that's high praise from a borderline Hall of Fame kicker, if I don't say myself, and Sean White. And I mean, they're a dynamic duo. So I know Sean was definitely thrilled to have Flint back, and I know the rest of the team is too.
And I'm glad you brought that part up, because that's one of those things the average fan kind of takes that for granted.
Yeah.
Like with Twitter now and social media, whenever someone misses a field goal, you see these people, oh, you have one job, kicker, make the kick. It's like, it's a lot harder than it looks. Has to be a good snap, has to be a quick, good hold, and that's all part of it. Long snapping is a big part of it. It's why we love the development of Riley Pickett in that position last year, and why we have an affinity for guys like Mike Benson, who did it for a long time, still doing it with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So that special teams aspect of it, all these intangibles are important when it comes to scoring points and ultimately winning football games. All right, receivers. Javon Catoy, Alexander Hollins, Keon Hatcher, all signing for multiple years. We'll talk about what that meant for Dom Rhymes here in just a minute, because unfortunately, you have to have the odd, for lack of a better term, casualty in these situations. But this Lions receiving core, even with a couple of possible losses, Lucky Whitehead still a free agent. We'll see if there's an opportunity there. We're not sure. But Hatch is expected back probably around the midpoint of the season, if we're being a best case scenario. By all accounts, his recovery is going well. But Catoy, Hollins, these are glue guys with this team. All these players have had career years, if not this year, then in 2022. This offense is going to be high flying again.
Yeah, and the way it's setting up is that this trio, along with Justin McInnes at this point, that's the future of this receiving core at this point. And I mean, I think it's even with the loss of Dominic Grimes, I still think that right at this point right now, this receiving core stacks up against any team right now in the league. And
right.
A guy like Keon Hatcher, like he averaged 87.6 yards per game last season. No other receiver had over 77.
Unreal, yeah.
So 10 yards better than Kenny Lawler, Eugene Lewis, Dalton Schoen, all these guys, Austin Mack that you think of as these star players, he had 10 more yards per game than any of these guys. And it was funny. I remember there was a point going into the preseason last year online, there was some media kind of tiering the best receivers in the league. So like Dominic Grimes was in the A tier, and then I think Lucky Whitehead was in the B tier, and then there was all these names that were in the B tier, and I'm trying to find Keon Hatcher on this list, and he's not there. And I'm like, he had like 1,300 yards in 2022. Never mind what he did last season.
Yeah. So
I actually brought up online. I said, why isn't Keon Hatcher being mentioned in this category? Because I think he's arguably the best receiver in the CFL. And last note about Hatcher, in 3 playoff games, 490 yards. So he is the ultimate guy that when the moment gets bigger, he delivers.
Yeah, and Hollins, Batman, one of those guys that came in and earned his spot and made the most of his opportunity. I think when Lucky Whitehead got hurt in 2022 was when Alexander came onto the scene. And Javon Catoy, further proof that good local players are out there if they get an opportunity, if they get in the right situation. It was Neil McAvoy that really pushed this team to bring him to camp in 2019. Ed Hervey, the general manager, said, yep, let's bring him. And sure enough, they saw firsthand why this kid was so dominant in the BC Football Conference with the Langley Rams, led them to a Canadian Bowl appearance, BCFC All-Star, 3 years, and this guy has all the physical tools as well, and even bigger things in store for Javon, I think. Each of the last 3 years, he's gotten better in all his major categories, and I expect him to hit 1,000 this time around.
100%. I think when you just can look at Javon Catoy and say, like, if you're a defensive player, you look at him and you're saying, we got to tackle that guy, and you've seen it on the field the last couple of seasons where DBs definitely hesitate when Javon Catoy's running an open field, and I don't blame them for that matter. He's a complete beast, and someone they value a lot with blocking too. He blocks inside the box too, so he's very valuable in that aspect. And then goes for 800 yards last year, 70-yard touchdowns. Like you just don't really see a guy. I can't even think even in the NFL, you don't really see guys at that size displaying those kind of plays in open field. So he is a very unique player, and he's a Canadian player too. So there's an extra benefit to him. And he's people across the CFL, they recognize this too, and that how unique and how dangerous he can be going up against them.
And I have a feeling when we talk to Mr. Rigmaiden that he's going to be very excited about this guy. A bit of a wild card, if you will, in this receiving core, especially with Keon Hatcher out. That's a starting spot that's going to have to be filled. Travis Fulgham and Vernon Adams Jr., from what we're told, is very happy about this signing too. Philadelphia Eagles played the bulk of that 2020 season, 38 catches, 538 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I remember this well, Sunday Night Football at San Francisco. He caught a long bomb from Carson Wentz. Alex Singleton had a pick 6. Nick Mullins, terrible for the Niners. For all those who think any quarterback can just go into Kyle Shanahan's offense and light it up, go watch some Nick Mullins highlights. Anyway, I'm not going to get too off course here. But Travis Fulgham, NFL veteran, you never know with these players. Sometimes these guys come here and it's not a great fit. Happens all the time, but every once in a while, and the fact that he has Vernon's endorsement has me excited. I know you're jacked up. A former fantasy player of yours, correct?
That was my first thought. Yeah, I definitely had him on my fantasy team in 2020. But he had 435 yards in the first 5 games of the 2020 season. So when you say there's an NFL pedigree to his name, I think there's a little bit of extra emphasis with that, because not every guy that gets brought in has numbers like that in the NFL. So he proved that he can almost be a 100-yard game or 100-yard per game guy in the NFL for a little span there in 2020. And like you said with Vernon, him and Vernon were together this week in Seattle, just for that reason, just to meet each other, get to know each other, bond a bit. So we've talked for on and on about how bought in Vernon is to this team, and it seems like Travis Fulgham is already buying in at a high level to this team too, which is exciting to see also.
And before we pay tribute to Mr. Rhymes, Daniel Joseph, this is one that from the outset might not jump off the page, but we're very excited to get this player. 4th overall in the Canadian draft in 2021. You remember, that was a bit of a funny draft. A lot of these guys had not played in 2020 due to the pandemic, so they had an extra year of eligibility. So made that selection knowing we would not see him for at least a year. Went to NC State, had transferred there from Penn State. had made the rounds, Buffalo Bills training camp, some XFL experience, an edge rusher, a Canadian, a young guy. He's going to be here for a couple of years at least. Daniel Joseph, I know Neil and Ryan and Rob Ralph, who played a big role in scouting him in that draft process. A big addition to our defensive line.
And I think the way this team has churned out defensive linemen over the past couple seasons, if the brass likes this guy, I think that's all you really got to know about it too, right? That he's someone that you see the way John Bowman and Ryan Phillips deploy defensive linemen in this defense. They like to dress 9-10 defensive linemen and not even dress them all, but they'll rotate and actually get snaps throughout the game too, right? So if he can add to that unit in his first season and beyond, nothing but good things there.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, buckle up. These training camp battles are going to be intense. All right, Ryan Rigmaiden in a couple minutes, but first, and yeah, it's the unfortunate part of the business, and players get into it with that full understanding, but still it has to be tough when the news comes. Dominique Rhymes, the club having to part ways this week. 3 seasons with the Lions, originally signed in 2019 free agency, and we're going to talk about memories of him, Nick, on the field. I don't know if he can pick one. Such a great contributor. And I'll go back to that 2-touchdown half in week 1 in Calgary to help really set the tone in week 1 in 2023. But 2020 doesn't happen. And Dom was one of those guys who's always available. Yeah, you guys need content? Sure. You guys want to talk? Sure. Like, I'm around. He was in Florida training, getting ready like a lot of other guys were. And he's going to be back with the Ottawa Red Blacks, which is good for him. I know his fiance was from there and obviously has ties to that organization. But what are some of your best Rhymes memories?
On the field, I think about that 2022 season was so special, where Mr. Headtop got born, where he was literally jumping over DBs for multiple 40-yard touchdowns. But the one that really sticks out to me is the first game we went to Regina in 2022. There was a play where I think it was a 2nd and goal, and the Riders rushed 3, so that means they dropped 9 into coverage. And Nathan's standing in the pocket, looking. Like, I think he had the ball for a good 7 seconds, and just can't find anybody to throw to. And I remember he's pumping the ball too, because I guess he just doesn't trust his read at that point, and he's trying to scramble. And then last second, he finds Dominique Rhymes over the middle, and he has that big...
the one where he deflected it to himself with the one hand?
I think he just snatched it. Yeah, one hand with that big, those big hands he has. He's also one guy that you look at his hands and you're like, this guy is not like many humans, because his hands are just a ridiculous size. But yeah, he snatches that ball with one hand, does a little somersault to the end zone, gets up, does that. I don't know what the touchdown dance is called, but it was definitely a good touchdown dance, and that was one of those almost jaw-dropping moments for me, where I was like, that is just an extraordinary talent.
The touchdown dance reference reminded me 2021. You were not with us yet.
Thriller.
Yeah,
the
Halloween one. Yeah. I think it was October the 30th, and we were at BMO Field. It was a memorable loss for a couple of reasons, namely the inability to kick some field goals late. But yeah, he scored in the first half and did the zombie thriller thing. And yeah, great player, better individual. That's a cliche we say about a lot of guys, but wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't true. And we'll look forward to seeing Dom 2 straight weeks, right? We'll go to Ottawa at the end of August, and then they'll come out to Victoria, touchdown Pacific. So sadly, fans at BC Place who wouldn't be attending the game on the island won't get to see Dom Rhymes, but perhaps later in 2024, 2025, you never know.
Crossover. Could happen.
There you go. And very quickly, the other moment I was going crossover, yeah, Ottawa comes here for the West Final after winning in Winnipeg. Sure, something like that. Yeah.
Sounds right.
Dare to dream. Speaking of Winnipeg, week 3, we've talked a lot about the big win there, 30-6. Rhymes was not healthy that night, but he was still there on the trip in his street clothes, pumping the guys up, very much being a part of it. And that to me tells you about the leader he was. So happy trails to Dom Rhymes, and we look forward to seeing you soon. 14 free agents, roughly, give or take, remaining, still just under a month to go before the deadline. So I expect more moves to come. Maybe by the time you're listening to this podcast, we've re-upped someone else, whoever. But stay tuned to our social channels, bclions.com, for all of the latest news and transactions. Before we bring in Ryan Rigmaiden, talk more about this busy week of activity. Arrow up. We're going to launch the September recap here, I believe, on Monday morning. Outstanding series again. It's all on YouTube. It's all over our social media. If you watch one of those cool clips on Instagram, just click the link in bio. Watch the whole episode. You won't be disappointed. What do we have to look forward to? What are we highlighting in September?
Well, September is objectively our best month. It was a 4-0 month. So
right.
The Dog, if you just watched the most recent one, it would have
started with a win in Montreal, did it not?
It did, and that was a big bounce back win because August was definitely the down days. Team goes 1-3, some tough
losses for the first time.
So that's kind of the point of the series too. It shows the highs when we went 3-0 in June, and then it shows the lows and we went 1-3 in August. But September's a big bounce back. The golf tournament's also in the September episode. David Mackey is someone that organizes this tournament every year. It's the biggest team event every year. It is a spectacle to see. So we were documenting the first hole of that golf tournament. So that will be coming out on Monday. But yeah, an exciting month. Like September, that's the Ottawa game, the crazy comeback, the Montreal win. Then we went to Edmonton and we got 7 sacks on Trey Ford, and that was a big win. Yeah. And then they come back home and blow out Saskatchewan in the Orange Shirt Day game. So I'm really excited for everyone to see September. Got some funny, a lot of funny moments, a lot of dramatic moments with that Ottawa victory. So it'll be a good episode.
Very much looking forward to it. That one drops Monday morning, but if you haven't caught up until then, head to our YouTube channel and get a look at June, July, and August. All right, we're going to talk about a few other things on this episode of First and Now, going long this week, this time, and why not? We've got a lot to catch up with you on. We'll do a little bit of punt or go for it, a new segment here. Very much looking forward to this. It's going to be pretty good. There's a tease for you for what I'm going to be talking about. Ryan Rigmaiden will head to North Carolina, get the assistant general manager's thoughts on his upcoming scouting calendar, always a busy time of year in the world of player talent evaluation, and talk about some of these players we've hung on to this week and before that, and possibly beyond. Ryan Rigmaiden coming up. And off we go now to North Carolina. BC Lions assistant general manager, player personnel man extraordinaire, Ryan Rigmaiden with us. And Ryan, we were kind of joking before we hit record and officially started this proceeding. It's cold in North Carolina, too, by Southern standards. What is it, +6 Celsius?
Yeah, something. It's low 40s for us. So, again, this is our type of cold. It's not the kind of cold that I grew up with or the kind of cold that you guys are dealing with. But it's still sunny and nice, but it is a little bit chilly for us.
Now, quickly, let's get the weather portion done here, because we talked about it off the top as well. Believe me, snowmageddon here in the Lower Mainland. But I was in Houston, Texas one time, and it got to about, maybe not quite as low as it was there. And the locals thought it was like the end of the world. Bundled up, toques, gloves. So when it gets down to that temperature where you are, is it a bit of a culture shock?
I'll say this, you get acclimated wherever you go. So when I moved down to San Diego years ago, I'd go surfing in shorts and everybody next to me would be in full gear. And I'd be like, you guys, I grew up in lake water. So this is just, you're just used to the cold. But by the time I left, I had an electric blanket on my bed in San Diego, and all my friends were telling me how weak I was, which at the time was probably true. So yeah, you become acclimated, but yeah, we've got our toques on. We've got our, maybe not glove weather yet, but you better dress for the occasion.
There you go. Certainly hasn't been cold on a Lions transaction front this week. Very exciting week. Some important pieces will remain, specifically at the receiving position. Keon Hatcher, Alexander Hollins, Javon Catoy, all signed, all multi-year deals, which is extra exciting. Just talk about how exciting it is to get some main pieces back to this offense, Ryan.
Yeah, no, those are 3 huge components that we'd focused early on in our post-year discussions of where we want to be for 2024. So to add all those pieces, and these guys are homegrown guys. They're guys that we've invested in. They were players that have come up through the neg list pipeline, and Neil was tremendous in getting Catoy after the draft years ago. So they fit both on and off the field. They're tremendous human beings in terms of skill level. I think you could argue that Hollins and Hatcher are maybe the best two receivers in the CFL, and they've earned that. And Katoy might be the best Canadian wide receiver in the CFL. So to get three of those guys for Vernon Adams in the offense is tremendous.
I know Nick here was quite excited when I gave him the name of Travis Fulgham. It's not every day we add a player who Nicholas here once had on his fantasy team.
Many others too, I'm sure.
Was he really that much of a phenomenon? He killed my 49ers that one game in 2020. I do remember that. Why should fans be excited about Mr. Fulgham joining this fold?
Yeah, he's an every tool player, like I like to call. So he can attack the first, second, and third level of defense. He can win vertically over the top. He's got tremendous size, excellent route runner, great hands. There's a reason that we were as excited about him, and if I can help Nick win some fantasy battles over you, then that's a win for all of us. But no, as much as we love Travis and we do, there's a bunch of wide receivers in this young group that we're really, really excited about. So, we knew going in that there's going to be changes, as there is every year. And there's so many changes that you have to make based on the totality of everything, age, health, what their salary cap is, what we have coming up through the pipeline, that kind of stuff. So, we had to make the decision with Dom Rhymes a couple of days ago. And obviously we've seen he's already signed in Ottawa. It's hard to say goodbye to a player like that. But at the same time, when you have players like Travis and some of these other young players coming in, it makes it a little bit easier.
Can you just talk about some of those other players that have been brought in that excite you? Because every season we see in training camp, whether it's Alex Hollins or Manny Rugamba recently, there's always those first-year players that you immediately can tell that they have what it takes. But so far of the guys that have been brought in, of these first years CFLers, who excites you?
Yeah, I don't want to. Well, let me give you a couple, but I just want to stress that there are going to be guys that I'm not going to mention right now that are going to come in and surprise people. But Ed Lee from Rhode Island, Stanley Berryhill from Arizona. These are both, sub 4.5 40 guys. These guys can run. They can take the top off the defense. They're excellent in the screen game and in the gadget game with fly sweep and stuff like that. But Milton Wright, Jalen Sample, these guys both have size. Jeff Cotton from Idaho, who we signed a couple weeks ago. We've been chasing him for years. John Ursua, who, if you're a Seahawks fan, you probably saw him play in Seattle for a few years. He had an injury and now he's here with us. Taylor Grimes from Incarnate Word had an exceptional career, excellent route runner. So we are going to have absolute battles in camp with these young wide receivers. And as there always is, not just at receiver, but everywhere, there's going to be a young player that comes in that takes the job of a vet. It happens every single year. The talent that we have coming in is good enough to do that.
Mm-hmm. Also, in this time of the season, when you have that recruiting process and you're also gearing up to sign free agents in the coming month, does having a quarterback under contract and cemented as a QB1 like Vernon Adams Jr., does that help in terms of recruiting players across the whole roster, essentially?
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. And let me just say this. VA has been a huge factor in recruiting these guys, talking to them about the offense, talking about the in and outs of CFL football, what the BC Lions do and what we're all about, the culture up here. He's been huge with that. So he's been taking a very active role in reaching out to these players before they're signed and saying, hey, let me tell you how we do things in BC and here's what your fit is going to be. So yeah, he's been tremendous. And you guys know that. He's such a good teammate and he does everything we ask and more.
Yeah, definitely all in with this franchise. You even see Vernon responding on the app formerly known as Twitter. I'm not going to call it by that other name. He's helping fans with their customer service orders. I mean, this guy's all in, and we're in great hands. On that front, speaking of, there's going to be a lot more recruiting going on here in the next several weeks, Ryan. And like we said, it's good. The priority is we're hanging on to guys, not allowing them to get to free agency. But is there a certain strategy or a certain plan you guys have as far as who you might want to add to this group coming up on February 13th or even a week before that when the quote-unquote legal tampering starts?
Right, yeah. The biggest thing from the personnel staff and the coaching staff is adhering to our philosophy and then finding the fit, right? So there's a difference between building a team and just adding a collection of players. So, part of that, a huge part of that is talking with the coaching staff, but especially with Rick and with Neil and with Jim York, our U.S. director, Rob Ralph, our Canadian director, of what is the direction of our team? Are we happy with the way it's going? And then where do we add some pieces that we feel like can win us a Grey Cup here at home in 2024? So to answer your question, we're going to re-sign our own guys first. We've got an investment in them, and we feel like they're tremendous components to our team. So we're going to do that first. But yeah, will we be active in free agency? We're always going to be active. To what degree, I'm not sure yet. That'll depend on who we bring back first.
Yeah. Free agency, always a good avenue to fill holes and to provide even more depth, which has always been key for any football team on the championship trail. Shifting gears a little bit, it's not just free agency. We'll have the CFL and global drafts, the league going to announce soon that I think that's going to take place on April the 30th. But before that, you've got the East-West game with Neil. Coach Rick's down at a camp in San Diego this week. We've recently announced our U.S. free agent camps in different parts of the United States. How exciting is this time of year for you, and what are the goals for these camps with these more unproven talent evaluation opportunities, Ryan?
Right. Yeah. You're trying to find the next, Adam Bighill, or you're trying to find the next TJ Lee with those camps. When we go to the Hula Bowl that Jim and I just got back from, or Shrine game next week, and all these other all-star games, you're trying to find the next Alexander Hollins or Keon Hatcher. So you're always looking for that next difference maker, but it could just be a significant role player too. I remember seeing Richie Leone at the Shrine game, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Thinking, man, we're probably never going to get a guy like that, but boy, it sure would be nice. And then we bring him in. So, you're always trying to get better. I don't care what position it is, and I don't care how deep you are. You're trying to find that next guy, because you never know when injuries are going to mount, and you never know when you're going to need that depth. But fortunately, we've been able to do that in the past few years, and we're hoping to continue to do so.
So we got some fan questions too, right? From listeners here.
You probably had some notifications on your feed the other day, so we're gonna get you grilled with questions here, Ryan. But nothing you're not prepared for. Mark on Twitter, I think I know what he's getting at here. I mean, entering this year, I think some previous starters. He mentions guys like Hollins and Sione Tuhema. Ben Haladik has to be signed still. Losing guys off those entry-level contracts, what does that mean as far as the process for chasing some new entry-level starters in 2024 and beyond? It makes that more important, right? Basically, that's what Mark is asking.
Yeah, I think if I understand him right, when players get to those second and third contracts, obviously their salary cap numbers, double and maybe even triple in some cases. So your scouting staff had better be good. Fortunately, we've got a tremendous one here. Rob Rang on the West Coast, Rob Ralph and Jim York, they all do a tremendous job. Neil, obviously his leadership with Rick has been amazing. So you better have guys coming up through the pipeline that you can replace on those entry-level contracts, because in the salary cap age, you just can't have everybody making elite money. It just doesn't work out that way. I wish we could, because boy, it sure make my job a lot easier. But we have to go out and we have to find those young, talented players that can come in and compete right away.
David Whitehead, no relation to Rodney Whitehead, I don't think.
Can't confirm that.
Well, you never know. Maybe this is his burner. You never know. Well, when you get the question, maybe it'll make sense. David asks, my question is, who will be competing at the quarterback position? I'm guessing he means behind Vernon Adams on the depth chart, because, again, Dane Evans has retired. A great role, filled that role last year to a T. Dom Davis needs to be signed. We have Chase Bryce under contract. Anything you can reveal there as far as the quarterback room, which was a major strength on this team last year?
Yeah, Chase Bryce is with us, and Jim and I have been chasing him for years. He was a tremendous college quarterback, so he was on our practice squad all year last year. He wasn't able to come through a training camp last year, so we're excited to see what he does in training camp with a lot more reps, because as you guys know, once the season starts, it's hard for a practice squad player to get those kind of reps. So we're set with Chase there. We're going to add a couple of more. We will look at the veteran market and see what's out there. We've been stockpiling the egg with quality quarterbacks here, so we'll see who becomes available. A lot of this is going to depend on the NFL draft and where these guys end up. But I think we're going to be very, very comfortable and very confident in whoever we have here.
KBev on the app formerly known as Twitter. Could you see yourself signing a player off of another team's practice squad? We actually did this a few weeks ago. Lawrence Woods from the Tiger Cats, but that's always an avenue to explore as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. It does happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it does. And you can get some quality players that way. So we're always going to look. But again, the players got to be a fit with us, and we need to have a clear direction on where that fit is and where it's going. But it does happen. It doesn't happen quite often, but we're always going to look.
All right, you knew this one was coming. We go to Facebook again. Laurie Stone, what is the plan to strengthen the running game? We did have an interview in media with Neil McAvoy a few days ago where he talked about how you guys expect Smoke to be better this year as well, but that's always a position where you can leave no stone unturned, right?
Oh, for sure. And just to echo his comments, yeah, we do. Smoke had really not played football for almost 2 years when he came in and won that job. So to have the average that he did and catch the ball well and block as well as he did, we were impressed with how that went. So I think he's going to be better because the game's going to slow down for him. Usually history has kind of shown that jump between year one and year two, that's going to be the biggest jump for a player because the game does stop moving so quickly. So yeah, we're dependent on Smoke, but we're not going to leave any stone unturned either. We're going to look at the free agent market. The two running backs, Ronald Awatt and Percy Ajay Obase from JMU. These guys are talented runners, and we're expecting big things out of them as well. So, just like any position, we're going to try to get better. But between Smoke getting better, the free agent market, and these young guys, we feel really good.
All right, there's our mailbag segment. Had some good ones in there. We had to weed that one down pretty good. Nick, did you have anything to close out on for Mr. Rigmaiden while he's in the hot seat here?
Let's switch it up from football. What else do you got going on in this winter? What's keeping you occupied in your downtime?
Let's see. I've been watching. You guys, I don't think we've ever talked about this. I'm a huge Premier League fan. I'm a huge Liverpool fan.
It's got the banner in your background for those watching this podcast. Yes.
Yeah, I
didn't know that about you.
When COVID happened, I needed something to watch and root for, and I'd never thought I would be a soccer fan, but man, the way they develop talent and how their academies work and things like that, it's so different from how we scout American football. And so I kind of fell in love with that process and how they do that. And then to make a very long story short, I didn't know what team to root for. And my wife for Christmas that year had got me a history of the Rigmaiden family name and where it came from. And I knew a little bit, but I said, you know what, I'm going to go where the first Rigmaidens were found in England. Whatever team's closest to that, I'm going to cheer for them. And fortunately, we got a good one. So, yeah, I'm all in on Liverpool.
That's awesome. I think family history was a project for a lot of people during lockdown. Now, you're not the first individual to say that. And it's funny. Remember, I want to say it was the Bundesliga in Germany was the first major sport to start again in 2020. Remember? Without fans. And remember, I saw highlights of a guy scoring a goal and the teammates couldn't even hug each other or embrace. They were so concerned about all that.
It was crazy watching you can never hear, we would call him a coach, but the manager, Jurgen Klopp on the sideline, you can't hear him during the game, a normal game. But of course, when there was no fans there, you could hear everything. And so, you're watching the game and you're hearing him yell things from the sideline. You're hearing the players communicate. And so it kind of took you behind the curtain a little bit into something that you've never been able to see before. But my family, we're all in. So we've got full kits and scarves and gloves. And I mean, we're all in on Liverpool. So it's been fun.
Wow. Anything on Netflix, Apple, any shows you're binging these days or?
Not, I'm a huge military history fan, so there's a couple of things on Netflix about World War II that I've been watching kind of on circulation. I'll always be in the background.
Awesome.
But, I'm not a huge TV guy. It'll always be something kind of history driven.
A lot of football, a lot of film. Too much film you're watching. Football film, yes. Okay, my friend, thanks for catching up with us here. It's always a pleasure, and I can tell you fans, us included, all excited about what's in store for 2024.
Likewise. Good talking to you, fellas.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right. See you guys.
Excellent stuff with Ryan Rigmaiden, and not just football with him, European football. Didn't realize he was a big Liverpool fan. And yeah, I talked to both him and Neil McAvoy. They're huge military history junkies. You see Neil the odd time reading a World War II book. I think he was reading a book on Churchill, Winston Churchill at one point. So intellectual fellas running this organization. That's what you want.
Well, my first thought when I hear about that is that in 2022, there's a video about this because I got to go and document it, but we went to the Comox military base, the search and rescue team, and the whole purpose of that visit was for a leadership exchange. We got to do some fun extracurriculars where Dave Mackey, Dave Menard, Jacob Scarfone, and JB, or James Butler, they got propelled out of the helicopter that we were in. But the main purpose of that trip was actually to have these 2-hour long seminars where the leaders of the search and rescue team and the leaders of the BC Lions football club just sat down and talked about leadership and how they go about it in their two different organizations. So that I know that aligns a lot with Neil and Rigman that you were just talking about.
Yeah, and I can talk football with him all day long, and planning some possible cool content with him closer to training camp. So
he's always down to you, Rigman. Always appreciate that.
He's always he's always offering up his services, which is definitely what you want to see. These guys are all in on helping the BC Lions. So that's, again, a very positive impact on our organization. All right, switch gears a little bit. We'll have some fun new segment here titled Go For It or Punt. It's, we each pick a couple of topics and explain why we're going for it or punting. So we like it or we don't like it. Let's start with some go for it. Nick, you lead it off. What are you liking these days?
Well, with this cold weather and all the snow on the ground, I decided to binge watch some TV. I've been actually watching Mad Men right now. That's one show I'm watching. I'm binging. But one show that I made appointment watching, and I'm watching the show live, and it just ended last week, is Fargo season 5. So Fargo is a show. It's more like dark humor, dark crime, and it's
heard great things. Haven't started it, but
it is fantastic. It's a little on the gruesome side sometimes, but it is a fantastic show. So this last season, I think, is one of the best seasons. Juno Temple from Ted Lasso is a main character. Yeah. John Hamm is a main character. John Hamm's like the leader.
Brilliant.
He's a brilliant actor, and he plays the leader of this ranch, and the season just ended. So if you're looking to watch, it's 10 episodes. If you're looking to watch any TV in these kind of January, February, cold, snowy months, I would bundle up and watch season 5 of Fargo. I'd watch all seasons of Fargo. But
what network is it on? Not a Netflix thing, is it?
It's on FX. They just took it off Netflix. It would be on,
because it has been. I've seen it scrolling Netflix before.
I don't know right now.
Yeah, I can I figure you're watching the show. I
was watching it live on FX.
Yeah, okay, got it.
But that's my go for it.
So, 5. And then another dumb question: is it the same premise as the movie from the 90s?
They take ties from it.
Okay, so same idea, kind of.
Because
the movie was great. I hadn't watched it in a number of years.
The stories are not intertwined. I also will say that each season is not intertwined, so you can pick up and watch season 5 and not have to know anything about the prior seasons. But they definitely take inspiration from the movies and other Coen brother films.
Got it. All right, I'm going to stick with the TV theme. Again, bit of an extended holiday. The weather's kind of iffy. You're at home a lot without much to do when your kid is content to just hang out and play with her toys without any interference. But this is more of an evening thing because I'm not watching this in daylight with kids around. But you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Not bits and pieces. So I got to get on that.
Okay, so I was the same. Someone would say a Curb Your Enthusiasm reference, and I would most likely get it. Back when I was just watching on regular HBO, you catch an episode here and there, but if you don't PVR it, if you don't follow it, you're kind of out of the loop. So once I heard they were announcing the 12th and final season coming up in a few weeks, I said, you know what? Let's just start this over. So I basically got through almost 6 seasons in a month. And I'd never really watched it in order before, Nick, and it's lately, once you get to season 4 or 5, it gets really good. Like, I'm laughing my you-know-what off. Larry David, just a comedic genius, of course, Seinfeld co-creator. They say that George Costanza in Seinfeld was based off Larry, and you can see it when you watch it. I'm planning to be done season 7 by early next week. I might just catch up when the final season comes on, because it's one of those where they're going to release it every Sunday, I think, through HBO and Crave, so you can only get one episode at a time.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited because season 7, and again, I'd only seen snippets of it before. It's the Seinfeld reunion is part of season 7.
Interesting.
So, hence the pretty good reference I did before Ryan Rigmaiden. So, any Curb fans out there, if you haven't really watched it all in full, I would say go for it. Start rewatching it to prepare yourself for season 12. It's even my wife the other night was like, "Hey, can you turn that down a bit? There's so much arguing and yelling on this show." Like, yeah.
There you go. So
all right.
We got your TV scheduling. We got homework for you listeners to check out some new television shows. What are you punting?
I'm going to go now? Okay.
Yeah, you punt.
Dry January. Just can't do it.
Oh, yeah?
Well, I'm going to explain. I've done it before. I used to do like January to Super Bowl Sunday. Done a couple times.
Yep.
But the older I get, Nick, I say everything's in moderation. So if I'm sitting at home and watching Curb Your Enthusiasm or watching sports shows, whatever, I'll have one beer, one cocktail. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Just don't have
No harm.
six. Don't have 6 or 7 before bed, and then you know what I mean. So to those who do Dry January, good for you. That's great. I'm not downplaying it or anything, but that's kind of become like a number one topic at the dinner table. Once
it is.
You're gonna
trendy.
you're doing Dry January. Oh, you want a glass of wine? Oh, you doing Dry January? People just automatically drier January. How's that?
Yeah.
So, plus the 49ers are playing playoff games, and I might get a little stressed out. So,
Mine got ruined pretty early because I was in Winnipeg for the holidays, and I left on like January 5th, and I was a Saturday, so the Friday before we had a little going away party,
right?
And that ended for me early, but I never intended to. So, but yeah, good for you if you do, and if you don't,
plus
enjoy those drinks.
Got a few of those Coors Lights and Hop Valley IPAs just in the fridge, so it's
got
right.
deliveries coming to us. They're so generous with that.
So shout out to our friends at the Molson Coors Company. All right, what are you punting? You're going to talk some football here. Pardon
I'm
the
back
pun.
in the football. Yeah, the NFL playoffs are on. I'm all into it, and these overtime rules, I've never understood them. I'm punting them. I've been punting them forever. I know they made this recent change. I still don't like them. You're watching the Rose Bowl, and that game goes to overtime, and the college football has the same overtime rules of CFL. And you're watching that Rose Bowl game, Michigan scores, but Alabama gets a chance to answer. They don't. Michigan stops them, and the better team wins, right? Or the better team in that game wins.
Yeah.
So Buffalo, I saw this theory online right now. You remember the reason that NFL changed the overtime rule to in the playoffs, the team does get the ball back after a touchdown is because in that crazy Buffalo Kansas City game.
I had to refresh this. The Bills complained about the rules because they didn't get a chance against Kansas City
after Kansas
time.
City scored.
Yeah.
So can you imagine Buffalo and Kansas City are playing this week? I still don't like these rules and how they do it. I still think it should be like just they should just adopt the CFL and college rule in my opinion. I think it's by far the superior rule. But can you imagine a situation this weekend, Buffalo and Kansas City playing? If Buffalo they go to overtime, Buffalo wins the coin toss, gets the ball first and scores, but
it's not
Kansas
over.
City gets the ball back, goes down and scores.
Okay,
and wins.
yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, here's what I firmly believe. The NFL is not going to rip off the CFL and college overtime rule. They're just not. It's the NFL.
But they should. It's a more fair rule.
It's the NFL. They're arrogant enough to say, and I'll tell you what. You talk to some football purists, they don't love the CFL and college rule because, it takes out the clock. Some argue it's too easy to score, which I agree. Move back to the fifth, maybe move back to midfield.
Okay,
but
maybe, yeah.
Anyway, and I'm glad you brought this up. I would have been fine with the NFL not giving in to the Buffalo request because there was that famous Chiefs-Bills game 2 years ago, like we've talked about. Some people saying that it's karma. Buffalo had 13 seconds to stop Kansas City from forcing overtime. They don't squib kick it. They don't kick it short of the end zone. That's kind of on you, Buffalo. But before that, There was also, remember Mahomes' first AFC championship where they lost to the Patriots in overtime?
Yeah.
And New England got the ball, came down, scored a touchdown, it was over. There was outrage after that. Oh, how does Patrick Mahomes not get the opportunity in overtime? Well, it's a team sport, and I think his defense had 3 chances on third down to stop New England. Couldn't do it.
I just think once it goes to overtime, though, just make it an even playing field. Don't let a coin toss significantly.
So what do you do?
Outcome.
So what happens if? Okay, let's use your Bills example. So Buffalo wins the toss. Josh Allen leads a touchdown drive. Kansas City gets a chance. Tie. Are you just gonna keep playing for 6 hours?
It's probably not going to come down to that.
Yeah, I'm fine with the change. But I was also. People react to 1 or 2 incidents. Like if it wasn't Josh, if it was just if it was Brock Purdy, would people be outraged if he never got a chance in overtime? Probably not.
The way look at hockey though, the way hockey does it in the playoffs, where it's just play until the next goal is scored, play until a team has an advantage over a team, essentially, right? And I think that's how it should be determined when everything's on the line.
Yeah, football. Yeah, I mean. Football's a little different, when you look at the physical punishment that these guys take and, there's weather. Yeah, that Bills-Chiefs game, I'm jack for that one, by the way.
All week, yeah. You got some predictions for this weekend?
Yeah,
Test
let's
our
do
knowledge?
it.
I actually tweeted mine last week, and they were terrible, so I'm surprised no one came at me for it.
I only batted an even 500 last week.
I had Pittsburgh. Not good.
I did not think, I was buying into the Cleveland hype. I had that Joe Flacco going back to Baltimore thing in my head already.
I had Pittsburgh going to Baltimore in my head.
No, once TJ Watt was out, it's like, I don't think so. But, all right, what are you liking?
So the home team's kind of, I think they did pretty well last week, right? Everyone but Dallas won.
Yeah. Yes.
That means chalk, and I am going completely chalk this week. I have the 4 home teams winning, so that's Baltimore.
You don't think one road team's going to pull this off? Really?
You're going to hate this, but if you put a gun to my head and said pick a road team, I'd pick Green Bay, but I still don't have much confidence in them. I think Baltimore, Buffalo, San Fran, and Detroit are going to win.
Okay, so you're going Ravens, Bills, Niners, Lions. Okay.
Or KC or Packers. That's 2 I can kind of see.
Let me stop you for if there's one road team.
Nothing against San Fran. It's more about Green Bay.
Last week, no one was giving Green Bay a shot.
Well, Dallas is the wagon. They were.
No one was giving Green Bay a shot, and now it's, Green Bay. Oh, okay. All right.
Jordan Love's playing at an MVP level.
Yeah.
It's scary. It just have that.
The Niners are not Dallas, but okay. So I don't want to be boring here, but
I would flip flop to the Chiefs too.
I'm going Ravens, Niners, Chiefs, and Lions. Buffalo's got some injury troubles. That's the product of them getting delayed till Monday, right?
I don't know who else can echo this, but on Christmas Day, I watched that Chiefs-Raiders game, and I thought the Chiefs were going to cruise through Las Vegas, and they showed nothing from the first play, and I told myself I do not believe in this team anymore, so I picked Miami last weekend, and that's why I'm going with Buffalo.
Oh, God. You picked Miami last weekend?
After that Vegas game, I thought there was no way KC makes any noise.
It was pretty bad.
They confused me. I have no read on them.
Something about the strength of Kansas City runs through their defense now. That's
Pacheco guy,
That's
too.
a top 1-2 defense remaining in these playoffs. I think it's going to be not going to be quite as cold, but it's going to be cold. Points might be at a premium in this one. This might be like a 2017 type game, 24-20 maybe. I'm not sure what the over-under is, but I'd be inclined to take the under. With Buffalo, I know they did beat Kansas City in the regular season, but this is different. What Buffalo team shows up? Is it the team that barely beat New England in week 15 or
lost to New England, did they not earlier?
Well, they haven't lost in 9 weeks. Did they lose to them at the start of the year?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I'm pretty
you can tell we've done lots of show prep here.
I'm pretty positive they did lose to New England.
The Chiefs are Buffalo's nemesis, and I have no reason to think that's going to change easily. So, yeah, I'll go with Kansas City as my lone road team. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay keeps their run going.
That's my most confident pick. Is Detroit.
If you look at the line of scrimmage and being physical, I think Tampa Bay can match Detroit pretty good.
Vita Vea, yeah.
Right?
They got a lot of experience too, right?
The Lions, they just won their first playoff game in 32 years. They're high on themselves. They haven't, we'll see.
I think the Lions are just going to put up 35 and Tampa can't compete with that. That's kind of my theory with that. Home field,
right.
All of that. So that's my most confident pick is Detroit.
So we just gone straight up here. I'm not getting into the whole point spread thing. I mean,
Detroit by double digits. I think Baltimore by double digits too. I love CJ Stroud and all that, but Baltimore they got a vengeance coming. They've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, that's I could see Houston keeping that close for 3 quarters, and maybe Baltimore pulls away. So, all right.
Give me a great weekend.
Yeah, this is the best weekend most of the time, right? In the National Football League. So, you were at the Canucks game on Thursday night. I guess my invite got lost in the mail. Saw a few of you guys having fun there. It was good for you guys.
Well, it was, you want to get into why I went?
I
won a contest.
Brent Fridd won the con. Brent Fridd always wins those things, right?
It's the luck of the draw. He's a lucky guy.
How's his hair looking, Brent Fridd?
Peaky Blinders, yeah. All right. If anyone, this is actually a good thing to bring up. So if I actually seen some comments on this online before where someone says, who's that guy who looks like Santa Claus on BC Lions sideline?
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, Colonel Sanders with the big white goatee and the long white hair. So if you've seen that guy on the sideline for the BC Lions, he showed up, that's Brent Fridd, one of our equipment managers, and he showed up to our Christmas party completely clean shaven and with a black, like Peaky Blinders style, and he's said that's the inspiration for the haircut, just slicked back kind of mohawk. And I didn't recognize him at first, but it's a great haircut. I love that he's pulling it off, but that look is gone now for the sideline.
Yeah, to take people kind of behind the curtain, he showed up. It was our Christmas party when I first saw it, and everyone's kind of, all night long, everyone's kind of, Brent Fridd looking good.
Talk of the night, yeah.
Looking young. Yeah, I'm just kidding around. I never have luck of the draw in those things. Maybe one day. We shall see. Canucks very exciting this year, though. Cup run? You're asking if they'll go on a cup run?
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, I saw a quote from the Coyotes coach last night saying that was the best team they had played. Like as far as structure and execution. That's a word you hear a lot since Rick Tocchet took over, structure. I mean, this could be one of those funny years where it's wide open, and I'm not sure how much home ice advantage helps in the Stanley Cup playoffs anymore. A lot of these arenas are the same now, but yeah, that arena is going to be jacked for that first playoff game. We haven't had a playoff game here in 9 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Outside of the bubble in 2020, so
need some parades here this year.
And I just thought about this. We're in Toronto in week 1, June 9th.
Yeah.
What if the Canucks and Leafs are in the Stanley Cup final? Are we getting ahead of ourselves? Probably.
Won't be able to move in that city.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be hanging out at Maple Leaf Square in our Canuck jerseys on the Saturday night before playing the Argos on a Sunday. So, yeah, I could see this team winning a couple of rounds in the playoffs. You could see them stubbing their toe. Boston Bruins, most wins in history last year, out in the first round. So.
Yeah, I will say though, I'm all in on the Canucks this year. I love supporting them. Gotta support our fellow Vancouver teams. They're
Absolutely.
a ton of fun to go to. So I'm all in.
Going to see the Canucks in Vegas in early March. So that's gonna. I'm more excited for that game now because of how good they've been. And that's right on all the teams in the market. Whitecaps announcing their schedule recently. Lionel Messi coming to town, expected to with Miami. So. Go back to that weekend in November, Western semifinal over Calgary. The Caps, unfortunately, couldn't get it done in their playoff game, but the Canucks also played and won a game against Dallas on the Saturday night, right after we had won. This, as a sports city, this can be exciting when all of these teams are well, and we wish the Canucks all the luck in the world. All right. We're all caught up. That was fun.
Yeah, well, it's been a month.
Been a month,
a lot to talk about.
First and now, be sure to subscribe, rate, leave, and review. I'm at BakesTakes84 on the app formerly known as Twitter. He is at Nick_Kowalski on the same app. Be sure to listen to all of our episodes again on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, Google, Simplecast, wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll tell you what, by the time we talk to you next, we'll probably have some more transactions to break down. So, first and now, your official BC Lions podcast.